Hi friends, my name is Nandita. I am from Andhra Pradesh.
Good morning dear students. Today we are going to discuss about control and coordination from chapter 7 class 10 CBSE syllabus. Children, let us discuss the parts of human nervous system. First one is central nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain controls all the functions in the human body. The spinal cord works as the relay channels for signals between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. Children, let us discuss about human brain. On average, an adult brain weighs between 1 kg to 1.5 kg. It is mainly composed of neurons, the fundamental unit of the brain and nervous system. Recent estimates have suggested that the brain contains anywhere between 86 billion to 100 billion of neurons. The brain, along with the spinal cord, constitutes the central nervous system. It is responsible for thoughts, interpretation, and body movements. Children, let us see where is brain located. The brain is located within the skull, which provides the frontal, lateral and dorsal protection. The skull consists of 22 bones, 14 of which from the facial bones and the remaining 8 from the cranial bones. Automatically, the brain is contained within the cranium and it is surrounded by the cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid CSF is a fluid that circulates within the skull and spinal cord, filling up hollow spaces on the space of the brain. Every day, the specialized ependymal cells produced around 500 ml of cerebrospinal fluid. The primary function of cerebrospinal fluid is to act as the buffer brain, cushioning mechanical shocks and dumping minor jolts. It also provides basic immunological protection to the brain. Furthermore, CSF provides buoyancy of the brain, that is, the brain is suspended in any layer of CFC wherein the weight of the brain is nearly negated. If the brain is not suspended in CFC, it would be impeded by its weight, consequently cutting off the blood supply in the lower half of the brain. It would be lead to the death of neurons in the affected area. Children, now let us discuss the parts of human brain. Following are the major parts of the human brain. The brain can be divided into three basic parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. The human brain has many parts including the cerebellum, cerebrum, brainstem, frontal lobes, parietal lobes, temporal lobes, and occipital lobes. Children, now let us discuss about forebrain, the largest part of the brain. The forebrain is the largest part of the brain, most of which is the cerebrum. Other important forebrain structure including the thalamus, the hypothalamus and the limbic system. It is the anterior part of the brain. It is composed of cerebrum. The brain is the center of the body. The main divisions of the brain including the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The forebrain is further divided into subdivisions. They are telencephalon and diencephalon. The diencephalon includes the thalamus, hypothalamus and pineal body. The major parts of the forebrain are cerebrum, hypothalamus and thalamus. Children, let us discuss the function of forebrain. The forebrain controls the reproductive functions, body temperatures, emotions, hunger and sleep. Children, let us discuss the parts and functions of forebrain. First one is cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part in the human brains. It is divided into two hemispheres called cerebral hemispheres. It sits mainly in the anterior and middle cranial fossa of the skull. Our cerebrum is the largest part of your brain and handles a wide range of responsibilities. Children, the average adult human brain weighs between 1300 grams to 1400 grams or about 3 pounds. The weight of a brain can vary depending on age, sex, race, environment and socio-economic conditions. Let us see the weight of brain in sex. When it comes to the men, the average brain weight of an adult male is about 1336 grams. When it comes to female, the average brain weight of an adult female is about 1998 grams. Children, let us discuss the brain weight of age. When the newborn babies have, the average brain weight of a newborn baby is about 350 to 400 grams, and when they come to age of 20, the brain weight of a male is about 1400 grams. Then it comes to 65, the brain weight of a male is about 1300 grams, and the brain weight of any body height, the brain weight increases about 3 to 7 grams for each centimeter of the body height. The brain weight and the intelligence. Children, some says that larger brains are associated with higher intelligence, but this relationship is not always clear. Children, the surface of the cerebrum is formed by an outer grey matter layer which is thrown into a convoluted pattern of ridges and furrows called gray and sulci respectively. Deep to cerebral cortex is an inner mass of white matter which forms a bulk of cerebrum and contain myelinated nerve fibers that convey informations or from the cerebral cortex. Children, now let us discuss in detail about what is cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is a thin layer of a brain tissue on the surface of your cerebrum. The word cortex comes from the Latin word of bark as an outer layer of a tree trunk. The cerebral cortex is necessary for memory storage, attention, awareness, thought, language, and consequences. The brain consists of two types of tissues. Already we discussed that. First one is gray matter and white matter. The outer layer of cerebrum are made from gray matter. The gray matter is formed by neurons and their unmyelinated fibers. The white matter below the gray matter of the cortex is formed predominantly by myelinated axons. The surface of every hemisphere is formed from gray matter, referred to as the cerebral mantle, and is folded to extend the area available within the skull. The cortex has roles within perception, memory, and every one higher thought process. Inside the cortex is that the substantia alba, within which are a variety of nuclei referred to as basal nuclei. The basal nuclei receive information from the cortex to manage skeletal movement and other higher motor functions. The gray matter mainly consists of various types of cells which make up a bulk of brain. White matter is primarily composed of axons which connect various gray matter areas of the brain with each other. The exterior portion of the cerebrum is called cortex or cerebral mantle. The surface of the cerebral mantle is folded in mammals. More than 2/3 of the surface is within grooves or sulci. Already we discussed that. The cerebral cortex is connected to the structures such as thalamus and the basal ganglion, sending information to them along with different connections and receiving information from them via afferent connections. Most sensory information is routed to the cerebral mantle via the thalamus, and the cortex is commonly described as comprising three parts, that is sensory, motor, and association areas. Already we discussed that. The cortex is extremely convoluted, due to which it has a large surface area. The cerebrum also includes the sensory areas to receive the messages, and we discussed that association areas. These are integrated the incoming sensory information. It also forms connection between sensory and motor areas. The motor areas is also responsible for action of the voluntary muscles. Children, the cerebrum divided into cerebral hemisphere connected by a mass of white matter is known as corpus callosum. Each hemisphere is split into 4 lobes, that is frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Children, let us discuss in detail about the 4 lobes. First one is frontal lobe. Frontal lobe at the front of your head. This lobe handles things like attention, behavior control, sense what's appropriate to and what's not, the ability to speak, and certain types of muscle movement. It is associated with parts of speech, planning, reasoning, problem solving, and movements. Children, let us discuss about parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is situated at the top of your head. This area handles touch, temperature, and pain signals. It also helps with how you see the world around you, especially judging distance, from and the size of objects. It also plays a role in processing sounds, language you speak, your ability to use numbers and count, and how you organize information and make decisions helps in movements, the perception of stimuli and orientation. Children, now let us discuss about occipital lobe. The occipital lobe situated at the side of your head. This area helps you understand language when other people are speaking. It also helps you recognize people and objects. This part also helps you connect emotions with memories. It is related to visual processing. Next, insular. Deep inside of your brain, it is present underneath your frontal, parietal, and temporal lobes. This part of your brain handles taste sense. It may also help process certain types of emotions like compassion and empathy. Children, now let us discuss about temporal lobe. It is situated at your back of your head. This lobe manages much of your eye sensory input, including the ability to see movement and colors. This region is related to perception and recognition of memory, auditory stimuli, and speech. A few structures that are the part of your cerebrum stand out because they have very specific purpose. Children, now let us discuss the functions of cerebrum. The cerebrum responsible for thinking, intelligence, consciousness, and memory. It is also responsible for interpreting touch, hearing, and vision. Your cerebrum handles much of your brain conscious actions. That means it is responsible for elements that require thinking, including your five sense organs. Your cerebrum manages and processes everything your senses take in. That includes sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Language. Various parts of your cerebrum controls your ability to read, write, and speak. Working memory of cerebrum. This is a type of short-term memory. An example of working memory is when you remind yourself to pick up something from the grocery store. Behavior and personality. The part of your cerebrum is your frontal lobe, which manages your personality and behavior. It's the part of your brain that acts as a filter to stop you from doing or saying things you may later regret. Movement. Certain areas of your cerebrum send signals that tell your muscles what to do when you need to use them. Learning, logic, and reasoning of cerebrum. Different areas of your cerebrum work together when you need to learn a new skill, make a plan of an action, or a puzzle out of a problem. Children, let us discuss how cerebrum help with other organs. Your cerebrum works together with other parts of your brain, especially your cerebellum, to help you with your daily activities. An example of this is picking up a pencil off a table. Your cerebrum sends the signals to the muscles in your arms, and your cerebellum helps calculate and controls your movements so your hand goes right to the pencil without missing. Your cerebellum not only managing consequence thoughts but also planning and action. That includes when you decide to be physically active, choose what you want to eat for a meal, or to set aside time to see in a healthcare provided for any reason. Because of this, your cerebrum plays a critical role in the health and well-being of your entire body. Children, let us discuss some interesting facts of your cerebrum. First one is cross presented. When you do something with one side of your body, the other side of your brain is usually behind that process. An example of this is having a stroke on the left side of your brain and feeling its effects on the right side of your body. Your brain is very adaptable. Your brain can rewire itself. This ability can happen as you learn new skills or help your recovery from injuries to your brain. Your brain has a specialized areas. Different parts of your brains are responsible for different abilities and skills. However, that's also fed into the disproven myth that comes people are left brain and right brain. Children, now let us discuss about disorders of cerebrum. The cerebrum disorders are conditions that affect the cerebrum, which is the part of the brain. These disorders can be caused by numerous factors, including genetics, trauma, infections, lifestyle choices. Children, now let us discuss the types of disorders in cerebrum. Alzheimer's disease, a disease that affects the brain. Anxiety disorders, a mental health condition that affects the brain. Next one is attention defect hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, a neuropsychiatric disorder that affects the brain. Stroke, a cerebrovascular disease that affects the brain. The next one is contusion and traumatic brain injuries, the brain injuries that can be affected the brain. Epilepsy, a condition that affects the brain. Next one is dementia. Dementia is a disorder that affects the brain. And depression, a mental health condition, also affects the brain. Then cerebral palsy, a disorder that the brain abilities to control movements. And the brain tumors, a type of brain disease that affect the brain. And hydrocephalus, a condition that affects the brain. Then multiple sclerosis, a condition that affects the brain. These are the examples of cerebrum disorders. Children, now let us discuss about thalamus. The thalamus functions to relay sensory information to the cerebral mantle, and therefore the hypothalamus regulating visceral function including temperature, reproductive functions, eating, sleeping, and therefore the display of emotion. The visceral brain describes a set of structures within the forebrain including the amygdala, hippocampus, also referred as to emotional brain. It is important within the information of memories and in making decisions and learning. Children, let us discuss about hypothalamus. This is a part of your brain whose names under the thalamus manages functions in your nerve system and endocrine system, both which help with controlling of other systems and process throughout your body. An example of this is how your hypothalamus helps messages your body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure. The hypothalamus is closely associated with the pituitary, controlling an outer-sized proportions of the activity getting to it. The hypothalamus lies at the base of cerebrum. It controls sleep and wake cycle of your body. It also controls the urges of eating, drinking, etc. The hypothalamus is a small organ located in the brain that controls secretions from the pituitary gland, which sends hormones to different organs. Children, let us discuss in detail about structure of hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a somewhat complex structure and comprises three regions. Each of these is made up of different kind of nuclei. These nuclei are groups of nerve cells or neurons that carry out many important functions such as secreting hormones. Children, let us discuss the parts of hypothalamus. First one is anterior region, second one is middle region, third one is posterior region. Children, first let us discuss about the first part of hypothalamus, anterior region. The anterior region is also known as supraoptic region. The supraoptic part is made up of supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. These nuclei mostly secrete hormones that interact with the pituitary gland to form more hormones. The anterior region secretes some essential hypothalamus hormones. Aspirin. The aspirin is also known as antidiuretic hormone or ADH. It modulates the level of water in the body. Oxytocin. The hormone oxytocin regulates several emotional responses and behavioral such as recognition, sexual arousal, excitement, and trust. It also controls some part of your reproductive system such as lactation and childbirth. Thyrotropin releasing hormone TRH. This TRH signals the pituitary to secrete the thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. Corticotropin releasing hormone. This CRH stimulates the pituitary to secrete the adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH. The ACTH signals that secretion of stress hormone, which is known as cortisol. Somatostatin. This somatostatin stops the pituitary gland from secreting some specific hormones. Gonadotropin, releasing hormone. GnRH causes the pituitary to secrete reproductive hormones like FSH and LH. The anterior region also helps maintaining the body circadian rhythms and the body temperatures. Children, let us discuss about middle region. Middle region, also known as tuberal region. This middle region of hypothalamus is mostly made up of ventromedial and auriculate nuclei. The ventromedial nucleus helps to regulate appetite and accurate plays a role in secreting GHRH or the growth hormone releasing hormone. It is responsible for proper growth and development of the body. Children, now let us discuss about posterior region. Posterior region is known as the mammillary region. The posterior region consists of the posterior hypothalamus nucleus and the mammillary nucleus. It helps control the stabilized body temperature, and it is also believed to play a role in memory and cognition. Children, now let us discuss about the functions of hypothalamus. The hypothalamus connects to various parts of the central nervous system. It is connected to the brainstem, the part of the brain that carries information from the peripheral nervous system and spinal cord to the upper part of the brain. The brainstem contains parts of midbrain and hindbrain. The hypothalamus is also connected to the peripheral nervous system. With these connections, the hypothalamus can affect many autonomic or involuntary functions. Besides the hypothalamus hormones, the hypothalamus also features osmotic sensors that react to concentrations of chloride, carbon dioxide, potassium and sodium. This osmotic sensor signals the kidneys to store or release water depending on their respective levels they play. The role of hypothalamus is an essential one and includes these following activities: maintaining sleep cycles, connects the nerves and endocrine system, balance body fluids, regulates body pressure and heart rate, autonomic functions control, maintain homeostasis such as regulating body temperature, appetite and body weight, heart rate and blood pressure, etc. Motor functions check, eating and drinking, emotion controls. These are the few activities which are done by hypothalamus. Children, now let us discuss the conditions and disorders of hypothalamus. When your hypothalamus is damaged, it doesn't function as it should. Another term for when there is a problem with your hypothalamus is hypothalamic dysfunction. Children, let us discuss the causes of hypothalamic dysfunctions include head injuries such as traumatic brain injury, brain infection, brain tumor in or around the hypothalamus, or brain aneurysms, and significant weight loss caused by eating disorders such as bulimia or anorexia, brain surgery and radiation therapy and chemotherapy, birth defects involving the brain or hypothalamus, inflammatory diseases including multiple sclerosis and neurosarcoidosis, and some genetic disorders such as growth hormone deficiency, thalamus pituitary disorders. Because of close interactions between your hypothalamus and pituitary gland, conditions that affect either are called hypothalamic pituitary disorders. Certain hormone tests can be determined that exact hormone involved to make a more significant diagnosis. For example, hypopituitarism. This condition can be caused by the damage to your pituitary gland or to your hypothalamus, which directly affects the pituitary gland. Diabetics insipidus. This condition happens when your brain hypothalamus does not produce and release enough vasopressin. This causes your kidneys to lose too much water and results in excessive peeing and thirst. Third one is Prader-Willi syndrome. This inherited disorder causes your hypothalamus not to recognize the sensation that you are full when you are eating. Without this sensation, you have a constant urge to eat and are at a risk of obesity. Kallman syndrome. This syndrome has a genetic link of hypothalamic disease causing such as hypothalamic problems in children has delayed or no puberty. Acromegaly and pituitary gigantism. These are rare disorders of growth due to excessive release of growth hormone from your pituitary gland. Syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone. This occurs when the antidiuretic hormone level is too high. Causes including stroke, hemorrhage, infection, trauma, cancer, and certain medications. Central hypothyroidism. Central hypothyroidism is a rare disorder that occurs due to both hypothalamic and pituitary disorders. This most common causes pituitary tumor such as pituitary adenoma. Next one is functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. This condition is the absence of period for more than 3 months in people assigned female at birth who previously had regular periods, or more than 6 months in a people AFAB who have irregular menstruation. The most common cause of this condition is hypothalamic dysfunctioning. Next one is hyperprolactinemia, a disease in diploma levels cause an increase in prolactin levels. Causes including a tumor, damage to nerve cells in hypothalamus, and other causes. Thank you. Children, now let us discuss about brainstem. Your brainstem connects your brain to spinal cord. It sits at the bottom of your brain and includes the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Your brainstem sends messages to the rest of your body to regulate balance, breathing, heart rate, and more. The brainstem is the central processing organ of your body. It commands and controls all functions of the body. This is because all systems in your body follow the commands given them by the brain. The commands are delivered through the nerves. The brainstem is composed of the midbrain, hindbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Together, all these structures execute different functions such as regulating breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and other functions. This forms the brainstem, and this is the basic brainstem definition. Children, now let us discuss about midbrain. Midbrain, it is composed of hypothalamus. Midbrain is smallest and central part of the brain. Midbrain is located between the thalamus of the forebrain and pons of the hindbrain. Hindbrain comprises pons, cerebellum, and medulla. The midbrain consists of tectum and tegmentum. Children, now let us discuss about tectum. The tectum is a small portion of the brain, specifically the dorsal part of the midbrain. It serves as a relay center for the sensory information from the ears to cerebrum. It also controls the reflex movements of the head, eyes, and neck muscles. It provides a passage for the different neurons moving in and out of the cerebrum. Children, now let us discuss about tegmentum. Tegmentum is a region within the brainstem. It is a complex structure with various components which is mainly involved in body movements, sleep, arousal, attention, and different necessary reflexes. It forms the platform for the midbrain and connects with the thalamus, cerebral cortex, and the spinal cortex. Children, now let us discuss about hindbrain. The brainstem is made up of hindbrain. This is the posterior most part of the brain. That is why it is called the hindbrain. The hindbrain comprises the pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Children, now let us discuss about cerebellum. The cerebellum is the part of the brain of all vertebrates. This brain is the center holding all necessary connections to all the sensory functions the body responds to. It is rightly called the little brain as it is located in the hindbrain below the cerebrum. The average weight of an adult human cerebellum is between 4.8 and 6 ounce, means 136 to 169 grams. The cerebellum is the part of the brain that controls balance and voluntary movements. The cerebrum is the part of the brain which is relatively larger than the cerebellum. The cerebrum Cerebellum medulla oblongata is located in elegant connections to the spinal cord and hence controlling movements. The brain can be considered to be a soft mass of connective tissue which also has nerves connected to the spinal cord that holds and supports the body. The brain controls mainly bodily functions like talking, walking, feeling, seeing, hearing, ability to think, and even controls your breathing as its neural connections are towards other parts of the head as well, like eyes, nose, ears, etc. It is because our brain facilitates the neuron connections we can say, sane and hold ourselves up, retain information, and build relationships. The cerebellum comes from the Latin word little brain, is a region of brain that plays an important role in motor control. The structure is located at the back of the brain, underlying the occipital and temporal lobes of the cerebral cortex. The cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain, located in the posterior portion of the medulla oblongata and pons. The cerebellum and cerebrum are separated by cerebellar tentorium and transverse fissure. Cortex is the outer surface of the cerebellum and it is parallelly ridges are called the folia. Apart from this, the cerebellum has the cerebellar peduncles, cerebellar nuclei, anterior and posterior lobes. The cerebellum consists of two hemispheres, the outer gray cortex and the inner white medulla. It is mainly responsible for coordinating and maintaining the body balance during walking, running, riding, swimming, and precision control of the voluntary movements. The main functions of the cerebellum includes it sends equilibrium, transfers information, coordinates eye movements, it enables precision control of the voluntary body movements, predicts the future position of the body during particular movement. Both anterior and posterior lobes are connected with the skeletal movements. The cerebellum is also an essential for making fine adjustments to motor actions. Mainly it coordinates and maintains body balance and posture during walking, running, riding, etc. Children will discuss exactly what cerebellum do. Cerebellum, how it works on motor control. The cerebellum controls muscle tone, balance, and equilibrium. It also helps with motor learning and comes under cognitive functions. The cerebellum cognitive functions. The cerebellum may also play a role in language processing and memory, pain. And next come to the cerebellum work in pain processing. The cerebellum receives pain input and transfers some of this information to the motor system. This helps the body avoid the pain. Children, now let us discuss what happens when cerebellum is damaged. Damage to cerebellum can make it difficult to stand, walk, and keep balance. It can also make it harder to learn new words or skills. It may affect a person's sense of timing or their ability to judge distance. Children, now let us discuss about cerebellar disorders. Cerebellar disorders are conditions that affect the cerebellum, the part of the brain that controls balance, coordination, and motor skills. Symptoms including ataxia, which is a loss of coordination and balance, and tremors. Children, now let us discuss the types of cerebellar disorders. First is ataxia. Ataxia, a loss of coordination and balance that can affect the limbs, posture, and gait. Second, hypotonia. The hypotonia is a reduction in muscle tone that can cause abnormal body positions. Third one is tremors. Rhythmic oscillations of a limb or at the trunk can increase as you approach a target. Nystagmus. Nystagmus is a disorder involuntary rapid eye movement that can be horizontal, vertical, rotatory. Next one is scanning speech. Scanning speech, slow speech with a tendency to hesitate at the beginning of words or syllables. Next one is gait abnormalities. Abnormalities standing or walking such as swaying, staggering or reeling etc. Children, now let us discuss the causes of these disorders. Causes of cerebellar disorders are infections such as bacterial, viral, parasitic, or post-viral. Treatment for cerebellar disorders are medication, rehabilitations, surgical excision for tumors, immunotherapy, and gluten-free diet. Children, now let us discuss about medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata, also known as medulla, is the lower part of the brainstem. The brain majorly can be classified into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Already we discussed that this is the lower part of the brain, hindbrain. Further can be distinguished into cerebellum. Medulla oblongata and pons varolii. The word medulla oblongata has origin from the Latin word vers medis, means corresponds to middle, and oblongata corresponds to long. Hence the medulla is a long stem like structure, piriform, conic resembling. Medulla is found in the lowest region of the brain, chiefly regulating the atomic functions such as breathing, heartbeat, and digestion. It is critically important as it connects the spinal cord, bones, and the cerebral cortex. Additionally, it assists to maintain body posture and governs our reflexes. Its view of importance in controlling head and facial musculature, the medulla oblongata is regulated as the spinal cord of the head. Children, now let us discuss the parts of medulla oblongata. The medulla is found between the spinal cord and pons. Its vertical and dorsal surfaces of the medulla are distinguished by distinct fissures and turbines constituted by different nuclei and related tracts. The medulla is divided into two major parts: ventral medulla, the front portion, and dorsal medulla, rear portion, anterior portion, and it is also known as the tegmentum. Children, now let us discuss what is median fissures. Along the posterior and anterior proportions of the medulla, hollow grooves are found. These are the median fissures. Pyramids. The upper part of the medulla ventrally is deeply grooved into the midline along with a bold complexity on either side. These are pyramids. It is the result of containing corticospinal fibers. Some of these fibers overlap each other, hence obliterating the anterior median fissure, which is known as the dissection of the pyramids. The external accurate fibers originate from the anterior middle fissures above the dissection of the pyramids. Running lateral across the surface of the pons, they are two round masses of white matter situated on the facing sides of the anterior median fissure. Olivary bodies. In the upper part of the medulla, the area between the posterior-lateral and anterior-lateral sulcus is distinguished by a swelling, a pair of oval structures known as olivary bodies or olivos. It contains nerve fibers linking between cerebellum and pons with the medulla. The swelling is as a result of a large mass of grey matter, that inferior olivary nucleus. Fasciculus gracilis. The rear end of medulla between the posterior-lateral sulcus and posterior-median compressors tracts entering from the posterior funiculus of the spinal cord. These structures are fasciculus gracilis, situated intermediate to the midline and lateral to the fasciculus unguentatus. These structures typically are the continuation of the bundle of nerve fibers tracts extending from the spinal cord to the medulla. The terminal end of the fasciculi possess around elevations referred to as the gracile and cuneate tuberculus. These are the result of nucleus unguentatus and nucleus gracilis overlying the tubercles. A triangular fossa occupies the posterior axis of the medulla, forming the floor of the fourth ventricle. This fossa on the either side is enclosed by the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Right laterally immediate of this fasciculus unguentatus is the tuberculum cinereum, which is at another longitudinal elevation caused as the result of spinal nucleus to the trigeminal nerve. Children, now let us discuss the structure of medulla oblongata. The medulla is a neuronal mass That's parts of the brainstem. It is located below the cerebellum and anterior to it. The medulla blends with the spinal cord near the foramen magnum. The medulla oblongata develops from the myelencephalon, and it is the most caudal brainstem structure situated in the posterior most part of the brainstem, merging within the spinal cord. Dimension: the medulla is 3 cm long and 2 cm wide with a thickness of 1.25 centimeters. It is home to all descending and ascending tracts carrying signals between the spinal cord and the brainstem. Its broad portion unite the overlaying bones, hence the narrow sections continues with the spinal cord. The intersections between the spinal cord and the medulla occurs within the upper border of the first cervical vertebrae, which is also called atlas. In addition to these other sections of the hindbrain, the medulla space out in the infratentorial space. Children, now let us discuss the functions of medulla oblongata. The medulla is critical in performing some important body functions pertaining to the regulation of mental, motor and sensory process. This is responsible to regulate the automatic functions of the body while it connects the higher levels of the brain to that of the spinal cord. Children, let us see what does the medulla oblongata do. Your medulla oblongata, often just called the medulla, is a key part of your nerve system. It's key not only because of its location but also because of its controls. Some of its jobs include managing heart, circulation and breathing. Your medulla is where your cardiovascular and respiratory systems link together into a united system that controls your heart rate, breathing, blood pressure and more. Manages other automatic process also. These are the things that your body often does, you having to think about them. Some examples including coughing, sneezing, swallowing, vomiting and maintaining your balance. 10 nerve connections to the medulla oblongata. The vast majority of major nerves converge at your spine carrying signals to and from your brain. That means those signals must pass through your medulla. 4 of your 12 cranial nerves, which connects the area of your throats and tongue directly to your brain, passes through your medulla. Crossover point. Your medulla is the location of a region called the pyramids, where most of the movement related nerves in your body crisscross. This crossover is why one side of your brain almost always controls parts on the opposite side of your body. Children, now let us discuss the medulla and the cranial nerves. Your cranial nerves, which comes in a pair and use Roman numerals to set them, that pass through the medulla include the following. Cranial nerve CN9. Your ninth cranial nerve handles many of the functions of your mouth, this including activating the glands that make saliva, spit and your ability to taste and feeling things inside of your mouth. It is also controls your gag reflex, which keeps you from accidentally cocking on objects. Cranial nerve 10. Your 10th cranial nerve, known as vagus nerve, is one of the most important nerve in your body. It connects to all the major organs from your neck to the top part of your colon, transmitting signals for your automatic nerve system. These are signals you don't think about, and they may manage your heart rate, interstitial movements and more. These nerves also carry signals from your muscles of your larynx, voice box and the muscles you use to swallow. Cranial nerve 11th. Your 11th cranial nerve controls muscles on your neck and upper back. These muscles help you turn your head or shrug your shoulders. Cranial nerves 12. Your 12th cranial nerves control the muscles that you use to stick out of your tongue, that makes this nerve vital for your ability to speak and swallow. Children, now let us discuss the disorders that affect medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata includes strokes, brain tumors and traumatic brain injuries. Other disorders like Parkinson's disorder, Alexander disorder and Wallenberg syndrome. Causes are stroke, means when blood supply to the medulla oblongata is cut off, and the brain aneurysms means it is a disorder caused by a block in a blood vessel of the brain, and brain tumor, it can damage a vital part of your brain, and traumatic brain injuries that can cause brain bleedings and seizures, and physical trauma can cause injury to the medulla oblongata. Genetic mutations in some cases like Alexander diseases, genetic mutations cause these disorders. Symptoms of these disorders are headache, hoarseness, inability to feel temperature or pain, jerky and uncontrolled eye movements, nausea and vomiting, paralysis, trouble swallowing, vision problems, etc. Children, let us discuss the other disorders of medulla oblongata. Dejerine syndrome. Dejerine syndrome, also known as medullary syndrome. This condition can cause weakness in arms and legs on the opposite side of your brain damage. Next one is bilateral medial medullary syndrome. This condition can cause respiratory failure and paralysis of all four limbs. Next one is Rinhold syndrome. Rinhold syndrome, also known as hemimedullary syndrome. This condition can cause paralysis. Alexander diseases, a rare neurodegenerative disorder that causes white matter degeneration and the information of Rosenthal fibers. Children, now let us discuss the treatment for these disorders. Treatment for these disorders of medulla oblongata including surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy and other medications. The treatment plan depends on the type of location of the tumor, the patient's age and the other factors. Children, now let us discuss about bones. The bone is superior to the medulla oblongata and inferior to the midbrain, so it lies above the medulla and below the midbrain. When a sectional part of the bone is dissected, it can be seen that the bone lies anterior to the cerebellum, that is in front of it, and behind or posterior to the pituitary gland. The broad anterior bulge in the medulla is bone and measures about the length of 2.5 centimeters in adults, and it appears as a bridge that also connects two hemispheres in the brain. Pons varoli is a part of the brainstem found just over the medulla oblongata and below the cerebellum. Horseshoe-shaped mass of nerve fibers is a critical part of the hindbrain. In Latin, pons means bridge, which also corresponds to the function it carries out link both the hemispheres of cerebrum. Additionally, it is also links the cerebral cortex to the medulla oblongata through the cerebral peduncles. It is from this structure, the pons, that four cranial nerves originated or terminated, which are crucial for transferring sensory and motor information both ways to brain and the facial regions. Pons hence provide a pathway for the nerve fibers to connect the cerebellum and the cerebral cortex. It relays impulses between the lower cerebellum and spinal cord and higher parts of the brain like cerebrum and midbrain, and also regulates respiration. The pon is a part of the brainstem that connects the brain to the spinal cord and cerebellum. It is a key structure that relays signals between the brain and the other parts of the body. Children, now let us discuss what the pons do. Connects the brain to the spinal cord, already we discussed that, and the pon is a bridge between the brain and the spinal cord, and it relays the signals, means the pons relays signals between the brain and cerebellum and spinal cord and controls the breathing. The pons controls the frequency and magnitude of breathing, controls sleep cycles. Pons helps regulate sleep cycles, controls senses. The pons is involved in sense like hearing, taste and balance, controls movement. The pons helps control movements of the face, mouth, etc., regulate alertness. The pons is a part of network of neurons that regulate alertness. Children, now let us discuss where is the pons located. Children, already we discussed that the pons is located in the brainstem just above the medulla oblongata and below the midbrain. The pons is a horseshoe shaped mass of nerve fibers. Children, let us discuss the structure of pons. The pons, even though appear as a bridge, the basal part of it is free and not connected to anything. It is the collection of various tracts and nuclei, all aid to serve the purpose of the pons function. These fibers of tracts and nuclei that travel down from the cortex are called pontine nuclei. The middle cerebellar peduncles are formed when fibers of pontine nuclei from one side across over to join together with the other side of the pontine nuclei. This forms the major pathways for the information to travel to the cerebellum from the brain and brainstem. The main artery for the blood supply of the entire brain is present in the pons called the basilar groove. It is a hollow groove that lodges the basilar artery and is present in the middle of the fibers. Children, let us discuss the structure of anterior pons. Anterior pons is also the origin point of many nerves like trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve and the most complex of all cranial nerves. The abundance nerve, which is the sixth cranial nerve, the facial nerve and the vestibulocular nerve, which are the 7th and 8th cranial nerves respectively. All of these nerves that originate from the pons serve very specific functions. Now, posterior pons. The posterior pons, when separated the connections of pons with the cerebellum, the posterior surface is revealed and the pons covers the upper half of the fourth vertical. It exposes the midline of the floor, which is called medial eminence. The fibers of the facial nerves looping around the abundance nucleus form a bulge called facial colliculus. Children, now let us discuss the functions of pons. The function of pons in the brain is very important and widespread due to its physiology and its characters to respiratory control and many other cranial nerve functions as well. The function of pons in the brain can be better understood once the entire anatomy and location of the pons in the brain are clear. The two centers, epenastic center present in the lower part of the pons and the pneumotaxic center present in the upper part of the pons, control the rate and depth of involuntary respiration or breathing. Signals relay is continuously occurring and it is controlled by the pontine fibers. The trigeminal nerve provides sensory supply to the entire face, part of the neck and scalp, and is thus responsible for feeling in the face. It is also controls the muscles that are responsible for eating habits like biting, chewing, and even the swallowing process. The facial expressions are controlled due to the motor signals provided by the facial nerves that is present in the pons. It is also controls salivations as it carries taste sensations and it provides innervations to the salivary glands and also regulates the cranial reflex R. The movements of sound from the ear to brain is controlled by the vestibulocular nerve that originates from the pons. Pons, being a part of the brainstem, is also involved in impacting several automatic functions that are necessary for life like breathing and even the controlling of sleep cycles. Pons is also responsible for proprioception, fine touch and vibration because of this ascending medial lemnicus tracts. The ascending spinothalamic tract present in the tegmentum is also responsible for pain and temperature sensations. The descending corticospinal tract is the pons regulate the voluntary motor controls the body and the voluntary motor control of the face, head and neck. It is controlled by descending quadricobulbar tracts. The activity pons helps in REM means rapid eye movement sleep. The other voluntary motor controls by pons is done for bladder control. Children, let us discuss about bones pathology and injury. Damage in bones can lead to many problems since there are many nerves and nuclei possessed by it that connects and intersects many networks and important bodily functions. The diseases or damage can lead to severe damage. An individual suffers from this damage disrupts voluntary muscle control, and they also lose the ability to speak if there is a damage to nerve pathway in the bones that connects the cerebrum, spinal cord, and cerebellum. This is called the locked-in syndrome. The locked-in syndrome is also a result of reduced blood flow, which can also result in strokes and clots or sometimes even bleeding in bones. Central pontine melanolysis. Central pontine melanolysis is caused when the myelin sheath of nerve cells in the bones is damaged and results in paralysis. Lacunar stroke. Lacunar stroke is caused when the arteries that supplies blood to the bones are blocked due to any reason, and it results in loss of memory, inability to speak and walk, paralysis, coma, or even death. Pons tumor. Pons tumor results in sensory defects of trunk and limbs, weakness in the facial muscles, and even hearing impairments when the cochlear nerve is affected. Pontine hemorrhage. Pontine hemorrhage is caused when any of the fiber of the pontine nuclei are damaged, and this also results in paralysis of the lateral rectus. Due to diseased blood flow in the arteries rising from the basilar artery, it leads to infraction of the bones that damages the function of the lower limb. Children, we conclude that finally the bone in the brain is visibly the most distinct part due to their horseshoe structure and bridge-like appearance. Even though from the embryonic stage of the adult stage the bones develop is only 25 centimeters length, it controls most important voluntary functions like chewing, swallowing, and even involuntary movements like breathing. The uniqueness of this part of the brain is that it is the starting point of many cranial nerves that also foster the diversity of multiple nuclei and fibers. The pons has a long list of functions that it controls, even starting from the tiniest change and in facial expressions and arousal is controlled by the pons to the heavy duty of managing sleep, that is the circadian cycle and other activities through motor control. Due to its cerebellum connections posture, it is also maintained by the pons, and importantly, the equilibrium and muscle tone is also maintained by the pons. With this presence, many things run smoothly, and even a small damage can create a heavy in the body, leading of serious effects like paralysis and death. Therefore, a proper care and regular healing through a proper diet to prevent the strokes and keep it activated is very, very important. Children, now let us discuss about pituitary. The main function of the pituitary is related to the production of hormones, as it is the part of endocrine system. The pituitary gland is a gland in the brain that produces hormones that controls many bodily functions. It is also known as the master gland. Children, now let us discuss about spinal cord. The spinal cord controls the reflex actions and conducts messages between different parts of the body and brain. The spinal cord is a tube-like organ and runs from the brain to the lower back, carrying nerve signals between the brain and the body. It's the part of the central nerve system along with the brain. Children, let us discuss the structure of spinal cord. The spinal cord is made up of soft tissue and nerve cells, and it is surrounded by vertebrae. It's covered by 3 layers of protective tissue called membranes. Cerebrospinal fluid surrounds the spinal cord to cushion it from shock and injury. The spinal cord ends in the cone-shaped structure called the cons medullaris. Children, now let us discuss the functions of spinal cord. The spinal cord carries nerve signals between brain and the body. It controls coordinated movements like walking, running, swimming, etc., as well as urination. It's also the center for reflexes like the knee jerk reflex. Damage to the spinal cord can affect movement or function in other body movements. Children, now let us discuss about reflex action. The reflex action is a special case of involuntary movement in involuntary organs. When a voluntary organ is in the vicinity of sudden danger, it is immediately pulled away from the danger to save itself. For example, when your hand touches a very hot electronic iron, you move away your hand in a jerk. All of this happens in a flash, and your hand is saved from the imminent injury. This is an example of reflex action. Reflex arch, the path through which nerve signals involved in a reflex action travels, is called reflex arch. The following flow chart shows the following signal of reflex arch. Receptors to sensory neurons, sensory neurons to relay neurons to motor neurons, motor neurons to effectors, means muscles. The receptor is the organ which comes in the danger zone. The sensory neurons pick signals from the receptor and send them to the relay neuron. The relay neuron is present in the spinal cord. The spinal cord sends signals to the effectors via the motor neuron. The effector comes in action, moves the receptor away from the danger. The reflex arch passes at the level of the spinal cord, and signals involved in reflex action do not travel up to the brain. This is important because sending signals to the brain would involve more time. Although every action is ultimately controlled by the brain, the reflex action is mainly controlled at the level of spinal cord. Protection of brain and spinal cord. Children's brain is protected by a fluid filled balloon which act as a shock absorber and enclosed in cranium like brain box. Spinal cord is enclosed in vertebral column. Thank you.